In our lives, there are the people who are genuine, who support us through life's ups and downs. Then there are those who may not have our best interests at heart, using subtle manipulative tactics to sway our decisions and actions to their benefit. Here are 22 psychological manipulation tactics to look out for, aiming to arm you with the knowledge to recognize and protect yourself from such behaviors. Hoovering. Just when you've finally decided to move on, they're back with apologies, promises to change, or grand gestures of affection. It's named after the vacuum because it's about sucking you back into the chaos. You might think they've changed, only to find the cycle of manipulation starts again. Hoovering preys on your hope for a better relationship, using your emotions against you to reel you back in. It's a cycle that can repeat, keeping you tied to a toxic situation with the illusion of change. Love bombing. It's like a fairy tale at first. Someone showers you with affection, gifts, and promises of a perfect future together, making you feel incredibly special. But the catch, it's all too much, too soon. Love bombing is overwhelming by design, creating a sense of debt and obligation. You might find yourself thinking, "They're so into me, I'd be crazy to walk away." Even when things start feeling off, it's a whirlwind meant to sweep you off your feet so you don't notice the red flags until you're too invested. Triangulation. Triangulation is a sneaky way someone might try to control or mess with your relationships by dragging a third person into the mix. Imagine you're having a disagreement with a friend. Instead of working it out just between the two of you, your friend brings in another buddy, saying things like, "Even Alex thinks you're wrong." Now, it feels like it's not just your word against theirs, but you're up against two people. This tactic can make you second-guess yourself, feel isolated, or pressured to go along with what they want, just because it seems like more people are on their side. It's a tricky way to tip the scales in their favor, making it harder for you to stand your ground. Divide and conquer. This tactic bears some resemblance to triangulation. Your colleague whispers to you that another team member criticized your project, yet no one said anything to your face. Suddenly, you're suspicious of your teammates, and teamwork starts to crumble. The manipulator has successfully turned you against each other, ensuring they remain the central figure you trust and depend on. This tactic is all about maintaining power by creating rifts, ensuring that the manipulator is the only one who knows the full story. By dividing and conquering, they keep everyone off balance and easier to control. Guilt tripping. It's like when a friend says, "If you were really my friend, you'd do this for me," even when it's something you're uncomfortable with. Guilt tripping is a manipulation tactic where someone makes you feel guilty to get you to do what they want. They play on your emotions, making you feel bad for not meeting their demands. It's a common move. You might see it when a family member sighs and says, "I guess I'll just do it myself," implying you're letting them down by not helping. This tactic twists your arm emotionally, pushing you into a corner where saying no feels like you're the bad guy. It's all about laying on the guilt thick to sway your actions or decisions. It's a tactic that preys on your good nature, turning your empathy against you. Silent treatment. The silent treatment is when someone decides to give you the cold shoulder, not talking to you on purpose, to make you feel bad or to control you. Imagine you and your friend have a small argument. Instead of talking it out, your friend just stops talking to you altogether. They ignore your texts, dodge your calls, and act like you're invisible when you bump into each other. It's like you're suddenly a ghost to them. This move is super frustrating because it leaves you hanging, wondering what you did wrong and how to fix it. It's a classic move in the manipulation playbook because it messes with your head, making you feel guilty and pushing you to be the one to break the silence and apologize, even if you weren't in the wrong. It's a power play, pure and simple. Projection. Ever been accused of something you didn't do? Like you're calmly discussing an issue and the other person snaps, "Stop yelling at me," when you're not raising your voice at all. Projection is when someone flings their own behaviors, feelings, or thoughts onto you, accusing you of doing what they're actually guilty of. It's confusing and deflects accountability, making you the problem when you're not. This tactic sidesteps responsibility, turning the tables to make you the aggressor in situations where you're actually the one being mistreated. Smear campaigns. After a fallout, you find out someone's been spreading rumors or exaggerating truths about you, painting you in a negative light to mutual friends or colleagues. This tactic involves disseminating false or misleading information to damage your reputation and isolate you. Smear campaigns are manipulative because they attack your character and credibility, often behind your back, leaving you defenseless against the spread of misinformation. It's a way to turn others against you, ensuring the manipulator gains sympathy or support while you're left dealing with the fallout, often without even knowing the full extent of the narrative being spun against you. Feigning innocence or confusion. "I didn't understand that was what you meant," they say, after you've explained something clearly multiple times. Playing dumb is a way to avoid responsibility, making it seem like any miscommunication or problem was just a simple misunderstanding. It's frustrating to deal with because it's so passive. You find yourself explaining things over and over, doubting your own clarity, all while the manipulator gets off scot-free, pretending they just can't grasp what you're saying. It's a tactic that undercuts serious discussions, leaving issues unresolved and you feeling unheard. Isolation. Imagine slowly seeing less and less of your friends because your partner always has a reason why they don't like them or why you shouldn't go out. Over time, you find your social circle shrinking until they're all you've got. Isolation is a control tactic, cutting you off from your support network, making it harder for you to leave or resist their influence. It's subtle at first, maybe even seeming like concern for your well-being, but the end goal is to make you dependent on the manipulator for social interaction, support, and validation. Gaslighting. Gaslighting is a sneaky manipulation tactic where someone tries to make you doubt your own reality, memory, or perceptions. Imagine your partner secretly took money from your wallet. When you notice the missing cash and mention it, they flat out deny it, twisting the story. They suggest, "Maybe you spent it and forgot. You've been really forgetful lately." Here, the partner's motive is to deflect blame and avoid responsibility. By questioning your memory and reality, they're not just covering their tracks, they're also undermining your confidence. This manipulation makes you doubt your own perceptions and memory, effectively distracting you from the truth of their actions. This tactic can be deeply unsettling, as it not only hides their misdeed, but also leaves you questioning your sanity over something you were initially sure about. Moving the goalposts. Just when you think you've finally met their expectations, the rules change. You've been working on a project for weeks, and when you present it, you're told, "Actually, we were looking for something a bit different." It's frustrating and demoralizing. This tactic is about never letting you feel secure or successful, keeping you constantly striving for approval that's always just out of reach. It's a way to keep you under control, always dependent on the manipulator's validation and perpetually doubting your own worth and abilities. Shaming. "You're going to wear that?" A simple question, but it's dripping with judgment. Shaming attacks your self-esteem directly, making you feel inadequate or embarrassed about your choices, appearance, or actions. It's a way to make you more malleable, seeking the manipulator's approval to avoid further shame. This tactic is cruel because it targets your vulnerabilities, turning them into weapons against you. It's about keeping you small and controlled by making you too insecure to challenge the manipulator or assert your own needs. Fearmongering. "If you leave this job, you'll never find another one as good." It's a dire warning, playing on your fears of failure and insecurity about the future. This tactic is about keeping you in line through fear, making the cost of leaving or disobeying seem too high to contemplate. It's manipulative because it distorts your perception of reality and options, trapping you in situations that are harmful or limiting. By making you too scared to explore alternatives, the manipulator maintains their influence and control over your decisions and life direction. Favor sharking. You know that person who's always eager to help you out, even when you didn't ask for it. Later, they remind you of their generosity at the perfect moment, expecting something in return. Remember when I helped you move? Maybe you could help me with this project. It turns what seemed like kindness into a transaction where you end up feeling indebted. This tactic creates a cycle of obligation, making it hard to say no because you're constantly reminded of the favors you owe, trapping you in a relationship that feels more like an account ledger than a friendship. Scarcity. This is the last one at this price, or if you don't decide now, you'll miss out. Creating a false sense of urgency makes you act hastily, fearing loss. Scarcity manipulates by playing on our fear of missing out, pushing you to make decisions without fully considering the consequences. It's a pressure tactic, narrowing your perceived options and rushing you into actions that may not be in your best interest. This manipulation plays out in sales tactics, but can also be seen in personal relationships, where someone might imply their time or affection is in short supply to make you commit more deeply or quickly than you're comfortable with. Fake moralization. Fake moralization occurs when someone uses moral or ethical standards as a facade to manipulate others into doing what they want, often without genuine commitment to those moral principles themselves. It's a tactic where someone positions themselves as morally superior or their requests as ethically necessary, aiming to guilt or shame the other person into compliance. For example, a person might criticize someone else for not volunteering their time to a cause, framing it as a moral failing despite not engaging in similar activities themselves. This approach leverages societal values and norms to exert pressure, making it difficult for the person on the receiving end to refuse without feeling like they're being morally deficient. Catastrophizing. If you don't follow this advice, you'll ruin your life. By painting extreme worst-case scenarios, the manipulator inflates the stakes of a decision or action, preying on your fears. Catastrophizing is manipulative because it distorts your ability to weigh options rationally, pushing you towards choices that align with the manipulator's desires. It's a tactic that exploits anxiety, making it difficult to maintain perspective and making decisions feel more dire than they actually are. This can lead to unnecessary stress and choices that aren't aligned with your true interests or values. Double bind. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. A classic example is a partner saying you should spend more time with your friends, but then acting upset when you do. No matter what choice you make, it's wrong. This tactic traps you between conflicting demands or statements, leaving no clear path to satisfaction. The double bind is particularly manipulative because it puts you in a perpetual state of failure, undermining your confidence and autonomy. It's a no-win situation, forcing you to constantly second-guess your decisions and seek the manipulator's approval to navigate the paradox. Victim blaming. This one comes into play when the manipulator does something wrong but insists the problem is your reaction to it. If you weren't so sensitive, this wouldn't be an issue. Instead of taking responsibility for their actions, they make it about your response, suggesting that the real problem is your supposed fragility or irrationality. Victim blaming is manipulative because it diverts attention from their behavior to your supposed deficiencies, making you the problem rather than the harm they've caused. It undermines your right to feel hurt or upset, invalidating your experiences and feelings. Passive aggressiveness. Instead of directly stating dissatisfaction, someone might leave a note saying, "I guess some people were raised without learning to clean up after themselves." It's an indirect way of expressing discontent or anger, making it hard for you to address the issue head-on. Passive aggressiveness is manipulative because it communicates displeasure while avoiding direct confrontation, leaving you to decipher the underlying message and feeling guilty or defensive. This tactic creates an uncomfortable atmosphere where issues linger unresolved and you're left feeling on edge, trying to avoid further passive-aggressive digs. Manipulation can often fly under the radar, especially when we're used to it. Hopefully, this video helped sharpen your awareness of manipulative behaviors you might encounter daily. If you found it helpful, please like the video. Have you run into any of these tactics? Share your experiences in the comments. Many manipulative behaviors are linked to narcissistic tendencies. Interested in dealing with narcissists? We have a video that could help.